It's mealtime.
Alright.
Curious how even Jack the Ripper turns to bone if he doesn't eat. Ah, but you won't be eating for much longer, I suppose.
Leave off, would you?
Bah. You're a frightful man. At the face you make when cutting innocents to bits. We've another Ripper mess on our hands now, too. To think you weren't working alone all this time.
How many times do I gotta tell you lot it weren't me before you listen?
Well, never mind it. You can say it as much as you like, but it won't change that you'll be dead come tomorrow.
The beefeater placed a chip bowl of gruel on the floor. Jack showed no interest in touching it.
You heard the news about that girl who came to visit you. Miss Whiteley, was it? Now there's a brave young lady. It sounds like she'll be walking through the East End tonight to lure out the other Ripper.
Oh no, and all of a sudden Jack's like, I'm breaking out!
What?
All life drained from Jack's face.
He would have posed no great danger to her with only the poor being targeted, so I commend her courage as a noble. Although, I do recall the Ripper would kill 1,500 more girls. Was it 1,500? A man needn't pay it much mind, you see. And you've no method of telling your co-conspirator from here, so there's no harm in telling you. Dead men tell no tales.
She wants to lure him out. Is she stupid? Has she lost her mind?
Well, why not find a way to tell your mate out there to see if the rumor's true? I don't care how many Rippers there are, just more prisoners for me to watch.
He kicked the bowl and spoon into the air with his boot. Then, after taking a final glance towards Jack, he returned to his patrol.
This is unbelievable. If I die here, Bradley will see to her murder. Come tomorrow, I shall be executed. If now's all I got left, then I'd best use it.
Jack removed a false tooth couched among his back teeth, one made unusually large to fit something that could evade an observant eye. All this time he could have broken out. I knew it. I knew he could have. He's finally got a reason to. A file, thin and pliable like wire, had been concealed in its hollow. He needed only to straighten it to transform it into a tool for his escape. Once lengthened properly, he motioned to the door's iron bars with the intent to saw against it. When he saw no one nearby to disrupt him, he began his work. Go, Jack! Midnight came to a prompt chime of bells. A frosty wind swept through a near silent tower. Most prisoners were long asleep, and if awake, they had no company with which to engage in banter. For them, the flapping of ravens was comfort enough.
Dear God, if you can hear me, help me, please. Help me, powerless as I am, to break free and protect her. Grant me this one wish, and I swear, I won't care what else becomes of me.
Jack only paused his work to mark the symbol of a cross over his chest. Oh, pious boy. And so he continued silently without pause. The iron bars most certainly had been worn from previous years. It was not long before one could be removed through his efforts, after which, through strict maneuvering, he fiddled along the outer padlock to file away at its shackle. This, too, became worn enough to break in a little over half a day's time. Jack was careful to keep the pieces in hand so they would not clatter against the floor. With all due caution, he pressed the door in hopes it would open. His hopes were answered.
It opened. Please, let no one come.
Jack slipped out of the cell and looked for shadows in the hall. As he did, the sound of boots that were not his disturbed him.
Someone's coming.
A lantern could be seen in the distance. A patrolman, most likely, was ascending the staircase. Jack readied himself for the encounter.
No!
The guard took a sudden sharp blow to the pit of his stomach.
Easy there. No loud noises.
Another strike of good fortune! The beefeater had been knocked unconscious, and Jack leant his limp form against the wall. He then considered a third strike, leading him to rummage through the man's pockets.
Here we are. Sorry, but they'll do me better than you for the moment. We'll return into the yard shortly.
And the third strike was his. Jack concealed the stolen keys before descending the staircase. His first destination would be the storehouse in the tower's basement where his confiscated weapons were located. Were he to face anyone other than Bradley, he would have sooner abandoned them. For now, they were his closest chance to victory. His iron claws were familiar to him, and he continued to pray they had not been discarded.
Which one's for the storehouse? This one.
Jack chose the oldest-looking key of the ones he saw. The rusty hinge before him gave only a slight creak, but it still worked.
Oh, found it.
His claws were still dried with blood from the last time he wielded them. The reminder that he had used those to hurt Watson, even if it was an accident, did not sit well with him. Oh no.
Christ, they got bits of rust. Gave him no salt and care.
The sight alone irritated him, so he observed the room to see if anything else had been left in the same poor condition. Several weapons belonging to fellow inmates struck him, bringing rise to a dark thought.
One of these might belong to someone I know. But this ain't the time to reminisce. I've work that needs doing.
He left the storehouse, locking it behind him so it would not look disturbed. He traveled to the roof of the tower, avoiding any sign of life all the while.
All right, almost there.
As Jack stepped outside, he stood still. The air was cold, crisp, and welcome to his skin in a way he hadn't predicted. Until then, he did not know the outside, in a sense, could have a taste. Since when did air taste sweet? The cold, in some strange way, was warmer as a free man. Before he could take his first step, however, he sensed someone was behind him and turned. Pendleton? Yes, I knew it.
Where do you think you're running off to at this hour?
You're Emily's butler. What are you doing here?
A sense of foreboding brought me here, as it happens.
Over what? Dangling Emily out as bait for a beast?
She made that decision herself, if you must know. Lady Whiteley believed it a risk worth taking if it meant the poor would no longer die and that London's people could sleep soundly.
Why? Why not stop her from doing something so stupid?
I did it first. But you must remember that I am at her service, not the other way around. It is my duty to obey what she has decided, and for her part, she summoned the strength to do what is right as head of the family.
Charming. Well, I have no such duty, so I will gladly stop her.
Do you not see the courage she has to expose the truth, to expose Jack the Ripper's true identity? And at no leisure pace, mind. She works to reveal it before your execution. I should think that if you truly care for her, you will honor that courage. Particularly since you must know, surely you must know, why she has driven herself to this point.
I know so well it hurts, but...
Jack made to argue. Pendleton sternly raised his voice.
You are the sole reason behind her actions. So I have no desire to stand aside gracefully. If you want to escape, it will have to be through me.
If that's how it has to be. Don't got any sort of bones to pick with you personally, but if you won't move, then I'll make you move.
Pendleton's got an objection pose? Stop, my heart.
Huh. Then we begin.
Pendleton drew his gun.
I don't have any more desire to stand aside than you.
These guys, oh boy. Their duel was started. Jack sidestepped before a bullet could fire, situating himself away from the moon's glow for protection.
He's made a fine cloak with all this fog. Don't even know where to start looking.
The mist, quite active with the wind still roaring, settled into the area seemingly more by the minute.
Where the hell is he? I thought I was the stealthier man between us.
I have been wondering for a little bit. Ever since Morin said that there was one man he trained that was deadlier than Jack. I thought at the time it was Bradley, but I've been wondering now for the last couple episodes if maybe he meant Pendleton. Because Pendleton and Jack are similar in a sense, and there is some kind of history between Pendleton and Morin that we have not discussed. And he has mentioned the East. Pendleton has mentioned the East End a couple more times more familiarly than I would like. And Pendleton is a beast. So if he had been trained by Morin, I would not be surprised. I don't know. It's just a thought I've got. It's a theory. We'll see. The swirling fog gave way only enough for the moon to shine along the roof. Jack, to his worry and contrasting relief, saw no immediate signs that he was with company.
Well, if I cannot see him, then he cannot see me. What to do?
The tower's stonework had crackled over its many hundred years, leaving stray pebbles strewn about the rooftop's path. He picked up a sizable one and tossed it towards the highest point. The only response was the pebble's thud and its subsequent tumbling downwards. No unusual shuffling, no sudden relinquishing of breath once held to mask one's presence. Yet this did not disappoint Jack.
Did he leave then? Suits me. It's time I left for the East End.
He turned his gaze in its direction and began to run.
Must I reiterate that you may only escape through me?
Jack heard whispering in his ears before being grabbed by the scruff of his neck. Dang.
No!
Instinctively, he forced himself free and pivoted to aim his blade for Pendleton's throat. The butler, however, unexpectedly prepared even for instinct's haste, stopped Jack's arm with a hardened grip.
I suspected as much. You were indeed trained to assassinate than trifle with threats. No shit. A boy like myself wants to live, then he's gotta kill. Can only go so far if there ain't no other means. I spent my days in the slums till I was picked up, and it's taken everything in me to scrape along enough to stand here. I'm not people like you who are born with it all. No.
But was Pendleton born with it all? Jack swung his arm. Though he missed his target, he was close enough that several of Pendleton's hairs were carried away with the wind. Pendleton retaliated by readying his gun moments too late.
Gone again, I see.
Pendleton surveyed his surroundings as closely as the fog would allow in search of Jack. It wasn't long before he made himself known.
No.
Before Pendleton could fire, the gun had been swiped from him.
That won't do. I won't have a bullet sent in for the police on my watch, so allow me to take it off your hands. By all means. A gun without any bullets is useless to me.
Expression unchanging, Pendleton produced a second pistol from his jacket and pointed it.
Just me luck. Well, not like you'd want to make yourself any more known than me. You're trespassing. The opposite, actually. I was granted permission. You and I have business that needs discussing.
Ah, alright. I've been waiting for this pose. Alright, Jack. Nice, nice, nice.
Do we? In that case, oh!
Pendleton ready to fire, but before his attempt at pulling the trigger, he was stopped. Jack had taken the butler's tricks and handiwork into consideration for this round. Jack aimed for the throat once more, as he always did when going for the kill. Close. So close. Yet remarkably, he did not follow through. Pendleton could feel the sharpest points of those iron claws ready to puncture his throat, but only just. They stared at one another in silence. Neither counted the seconds, nor did they blink. They waited. Waited. And waited still until it was no longer.
That will do, I suppose. I concede. The L? Concede, is it? You never bloomin' tried! Do you think I'm stupid enough to believe I've come out the winner when you stand here, all smiles, like you just went for an evening stroll?
Jack's shoulders were shaking and his breathing unsteady, as one should look after a duel between two competent men. Pendleton, of course, did not. His condition was perfect, as it always was.
I did wonder if you would buckle under enough opposition. and I have my answer. Now, if you're so intent on helping Lady Whiteley, you will come with me to the East End. Me? Go with you? Is this a joke? It is not. She volunteered to act as a lure and is set to wander through the East End at 1 o'clock in the morning. Scotland Yard shall serve as her escort, but you know as well as I do how dependable they are. Certainly do. They do have the benefit of the Holmeses, Watson, and the military escorting her as well, I might add. That isn't enough to protect her from the Ripper. Could be 10 men, could be 100, but he'll still find their flaw and exploit it. I'm inclined to agree. We must also consider that he won't take the bait at all. He may very well attack us the moment we let our guard down, making all planning for naught. This is a risky gamble in every respect. Will you still agree to accompany me? Don't got no choice, really. You'd be too interfering as an enemy, so we do better to protect her as allies. Then we are in agreement. I will gladly borrow your strength if it secures her future in turn. Now, we've no time to waste. Let us go before the fog lifts. The law doesn't take to those who help dead men walking like myself, you know. You sure you thought this through? I'm fine with that. I alone am not enough for this, and I believe this means enough to you that you would protect her regardless, correct? Oh, all right then.
Jack saw then how pointless his efforts to walk away from the victor were. He had been played in all respects, his emotions laid bare by a refined man who knew his heart better than Jack could mask it. What a complete fool he was.
Emily's not said anything about me, has she? Oh, not a single word. Right. Should have kept me mouth shut. Huh. Well done. You finally wear a face befitting your age. But you still have to work for the truth, I'm afraid.
Aww. Pendleton, don't play with the poor boy. He's worried. Together, they used the fog to their advantage to slip past the watchful eyes of the beefeaters and escape the Tower of London. The East End was soon to be upon them. Time for a showdown.
Right this way, Miss Whiteley.
Thank you, Inspector.
You have the deepest respect of all Scotland Yard for your bravery.
The officers saluted in one entire motion. Nice. You're too kind. I don't know what good this will do, if any, but it's my pleasure to try if it's within my power. Still, I see neither hide nor hair of Pendleton. Just where has he gotten to?
Indeed. He mentioned he would return before the operation begins. We still have another 20 minutes, my good man. I would advise a delay in plans if he's yet to return 5 minutes before we're scheduled to begin, however. The danger we're imposing upon her cannot be understated, and I think we all wish to prioritize her safety.
Agreed. You mustn't overexert yourself, Miss Whiteley. If you have any second thoughts, you can stop at any time. Your life means more than any operation.
I appreciate the thought, but I'm all right. The alternative would be to run and hide from him, so I would be on watch for him regardless. I only feel awful for bringing each of you into this matter. You didn't have to face the danger with me.
Oh, we've been caught up in this for some time now. We may not catch him with this, but your bravery is worthy of praise, even if your intellect isn't.
There are better ways to compliment me.
Are you certain about this, Emily? You look nearly out of your wits. I don't want you to push yourself too hard.
Oh, don't be silly. Or so I said. He was a perceptive one, that Watson. Even when surrounded by a plethora of officers, allies, and such, my nerves were strained to their limits. I looked around me for comfort, but the feeling wouldn't leave me no matter how I tried to convince myself of my security.
I'm terribly sorry for the delay, my lady. I've returned.
Pendleton! Goodness gracious, where were you? I stopped just short of finishing. Pendleton looked out of sorts. His face was dewed with sweat, and his eyes were as serious as I'd ever seen them. What this meant, I didn't know, but it was enough to silence me.
If no one objects, I will review our route one last time. First, we will pass through Brady Street and enter Buck's Row. From there, we will visit the location where the first Ripper victim, Miss Nichols, was discovered. We shall then move to the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street, where the body of his second victim, Miss Chapman, was found.
Are we just gonna walk to where all of the victims were? I mean, he's picked a different spot to kill every time. Why would we think he'd go to an old haunt? I mean, I guess it's as good a plan as any, but it's just interesting.
The third, Miss Stride, was discovered in the yard adjacent to the International Working Men's Educational Club on Burner Street, so that will be our next destination. And the fourth, Miss Eddowes, was discovered in Mitres Square, Aldgate. Finally, we have the fifth and final victim found along Miller's Court at Dorset Street, Miss Kelly. A police carriage shall also be waiting for you there to welcome you aboard. Until tomorrow, or when we deem it safe, the yard will stop at nothing to ensure your protection.
Thank you, Inspector. I gathered 5 white English roses into my hands. Are you leaving flowers at the sites? Wow. Girl.
We'll be keeping watch over your surroundings. I'm absolutely certain tonight will be the night we catch our killer. Miss Whiteley, may God watch over you.
Thank you. Although I'd rather if you guys were... you could actually do something about it. Well, we'd best begin.
Of course, my lady.
There we go. Our starting point was a Scotland Yard police station north of the East End.
Are you frightened, my lady? Your hands are shaking.
It's nothing. Truly. The streets were filthy, but I persisted in my march and in constant obstinance to my rhythm step by step. Now that it's us, Pendleton, I'd like to discuss something. Should Jack the Ripper attack us?
I understand. But, my lady, I have something to discuss with you also.
Do you, Pendleton?
Jack Millers has escaped from the tower. He is protecting you as we speak.
Jack! That can't be!
My lady, please, keep your voice down.
Pardon me, Are you being sincere? Has Jack escaped from the Tower of London? But that will only add to his list of crimes. He's gonna die anyway. What are they gonna do, kill him twice?
It will, but he did so with an earnest desire to protect you. Before his execution, he wanted to do whatever he could for you.
And how did you come to learn this?
Whoops. The truth is, not long before my return, I requested a meeting with him. I do hope you'll excuse my acting out of line.
You don't seem the least bit guilty to me.
My lady, you must not seek him out. Doing so would alert our enemy to his presence.
That's very true. Jack is watching over me. I'm going to be all right.
We should continue, my lady. Stay close to me.
In time, we arrived at the final resting place of Mary Ann Nichols. What can I do here? I mean, you've got the flowers, so do your thing. May you safely reach the kingdom of heaven. I placed one of the white roses where her body had been before clasping my hands in prayer. Pendleton and the men of Scotland Yard cautiously kept watch over my surroundings as I did. I was afraid. Absolutely, my nerves had been racked to a point where I dared not to strain them further. But knowing Jack was near gave me faith. He was among my guardians. What strength knowing this sent me. What courage. There were 4 more places to visit. I guess that every time she stopped, she'll probably, get more and more courageous about it. I hope. Annie Chapman was the full name of the next woman. Her body was no longer splayed crudely at the next place I stopped. Alright, and once more. May you safely reach the kingdom of heaven. I placed down a rose and prayed. This enclosed yard was weighted down by an eerie silence. The scene of horror, which had long been cleared away, still made itself known in this way, this miserable atmosphere. My heart thudded violently when I tried to imagine it, and even more when I tried to dismiss these imaginings. But I could carry this weight, for I knew Jack was watching over me. There were 3 more places to visit. I next arrived at the location of Elizabeth Stride, the 3rd victim, a woman who, like them all, deserved no such fate. May you safely reach the kingdom of heaven. I placed down a rose and I prayed with all my heart for her soul. The fear I felt in this moment wanted to consume me, but I fought to deny it. I told myself, how did she feel as death overcame her? I was grateful not to understand. I had the men of Scotland Yard, Pendleton, and Jack to thank for that. Don't forget Holmes and Watson. Holmeses, rather. There were 2 more places to visit. I'm actually getting more nervous the more the closer we get. When we arrived at the location where Catherine Eddowes once lay, we stopped. May you safely reach the kingdom of heaven. I placed a white rose where her body had been and prayed in earnest. It was a cold night in the East End. So terribly cold, in fact, that my hands were growing numb from our walk. Jack, did you know how much knowing you were there strengthened me? There was only 1 place left to visit. It's getting rather chilly now, and the fog is thickening.
Which is why you must take care. We don't know if the Ripper is lurking within this fog and waiting for his chance.
I know. I'll be careful. What served our enemy as a fine blanket instead smothered the police. I had no choice but to stay aware of my surroundings, lest the men watching over me become unable to see me at all. Yes, I needed to remember how dangerous my position was. Forgetting meant death, and so I braced myself for the end. The final location was where Mary Jane Kelly had been discovered. The 5th victim, the last. The room had been left just as it was in her death. The glass was still crudely cracked, the door was still ajar from its initial discovery, and the sheets still in disarray. Of all the places I visited, death smelt strongest here. This is the last. And once more with feeling. May you safely reach the kingdom of heaven. I stretched my hand out to place a white rose in the corner of the room. That was when a loud bang came from outside.
My lady, get down!
We crouched from inside the room. I could only assume that noise came from an officer firing his gun.
Miss Whiteley, are you all right?
An officer shouted loud enough through the window for me to hear. Yes! What happened? Was it Jack the Ripper?
Most likely, but he was too fast to know for certain. Disappeared into the fog before we even fired our warning shot.
So then the Ripper is nearby?
That may well have been him, but...
All the horrors I pushed out of my mind surfaced rapidly. With every pound of my heart, the fear rose and the room blackened. Fog enveloped my senses as it darted through the broken window in a monstrous form, coiling around me and grazing my cheek with a serpentine tongue of mist and smoke. I extended my arm to fight it off, but when I reached out, I saw not even my own hand. When this beast bared its fangs, I spotted a glint. Someone had a knife.
There you are!
Pendleton was the first to react as he thrust a fist in its direction.
You're in my way.
The assailant grabbed hold of his arm and pulled him in.
Go!
Pendleton! He used his other hand to retaliate with a loaded pistol, but the bullet missed its mark. As I moved to his side, all instinct froze me in my tracks. The knife cut through the fog again. Why this was the only thing I could see could not be processed in any reasonable sense to an erratic mind. All I knew was that I could not see myself, but this thing, this knife, stared at me with a salivating mouth.
My lady!
Did Pendleton call out to me? Was his cry some figment created from desperation? The world had turned slow and mute. Only the knife had color. Only the knife had sound. I saw it, pointed directly towards me and only me. Nothing else felt as close. No! A streak of light cut in front of me. I jumped backwards reflexively. I must have. Ooh, I think Jack got there in time. It was fortunate my body worked whilst my brain staggered. As I barely evaded the oncoming attack, all I saw were wisps of my own hair scattering about. And suddenly, I was cognizant. He's targeting my neck! My throat! The swirling phenomenon of fog and slashes was not any monster, but their king, Jack the Ripper. As he grew closer, the eyes that watched mine glistened. My breathing grew disheveled. Disheveled breathing. I never thought of breathing as being disheveled. Huh. There was no running or something so foolish as fighting back. I was trapped and trembling, the lone frog in the pond for the snake to feed. Death approached. To scream or make any sort of whimper would only invite it sooner. Okay, so Jack hasn't come yet. I thought the light was him, like, deflecting the knife. But it's just her, like, evading in the fog. I can't call for help! I can't breathe. But what can I do then? Every breath gives me away, but what can I do? I held my breath. A worthless ploy. My throat became so parched that it started to hurt. A painful prickling would follow if I swallowed. I dared not move for fear of the dry, smacking sound of tongue on teeth. Jack the Ripper was there, even if I saw no silhouette. What brought fear worse than seeing him was not being able to, and yet knowing he was there. My lungs tightened with the pain of breath held too long, and the pressure pushed against my throat. I went to put my hand over my mouth to muffle my breath. And as I did, I felt a foreign hand being placed over it from behind me. No! He's found me! The color drained from my face. I waited.
Quiet. It's me.
Jack? It was him. Oh, thank God, it was him.
Come on. Don't make a sound.
He took my hand and tugged me along. Yay! Run away together forever. Just run out of London. Go somewhere, anywhere but here. And, just like that, the immediate danger had passed as we left Miller's Court. I never thought we'd speak again. This isn't a dream, is it? But a sense of security was coming back to me, and as my heart calmed itself to a comfortable tremor, I thought of the texture of his voice and the feel of his hand. Jack was real. Jack was here. We could meet. Talk. I couldn't understand it, but then, why bother to understand? I was happy. So I did what I could to hide my elation. This wasn't the time to feel giddy and girlish. Oh, Emily. I needed to remember that I was still the lure. I'm still the lure. Afraid as I was doing precisely what I was meant to. The first thing Jack did was move close to my ear and whisper.
Emily, I'm gonna attract Bradley's attention, and then I will kill him. Don't go running off. The yard's been thrown into confusion, and with the fog thick as it is, they won't know me and him from Adam.
He was as serious as I'd ever seen him. The bells of St. Mary Magdalene's Church chimed then, indicating 3 o'clock in the morning. And so we ran together, using its mighty tolls to silence our footsteps. We raced through the streets, turning left, right, backwards, forwards, through deserted alleyways and whatever mazes permitted us freedom, and then we leapt and moved till we reached a rooftop that was dark enough to grant us sufficient cover.
What possessed you to volunteer as a decoy? Reckless Gale. Thought my heart would stop when I heard.
I could say the same to you! That wasn't what I wanted to say. I didn't want to scold or bicker here. You gotta kiss this boy in case he dies, girl. Thank you, Jack. I was so afraid when I was separated from Pendleton.
You'll be alright. Changing guard from him to me was part of the plan. At present, you should be searching for a chance to take a clean shot.
That's good, then. I'm glad.
A fog this thick will not hinder Jack the Ripper, mind. Move about with caution. The night could be clear and lighted with the stars, or it could be heavy fog like tonight, but it's all the same to him. Even my eyes aren't as good as his.
Jack had me grip his left wrist. His entire arm was considerably thin. Jack never had a healthy build, but this was no natural slimness. It was one molded after weeks deprived of hearty meals. The Tower of London had been cruel to him. It hurt to picture it.
Keep hold, Emily. You can't let go. Don't care what happens. Should we become separated, he may find you before I do.
How far do you plan to go?
Your butlers advise that in this event, I want to take you to a coach off Dorset Street. And I shall do just that. Once that's done, I will send off the Ripper.
I remembered this face. I saw it when he was behind a cell, and now I had to see it again when he stood freely. Jack was content. Worryingly so. I didn't want to see him like this, with his dignified countenance. I didn't want to see how he looked as he accepted his own death. Jack, you're not... My heart skipped a beat. And here he was. He had escaped his cell, and if he so willed it, he could avoid it. But he wasn't a dishonest person by his very nature. My voice lowered to a whisper to control the unease. You're not planning to send yourself off with him, are you?
When did I say that? Now, no more of that face.
He followed this with faint laughter in a poor attempt to comfort me. What followed was silence, and so I looked up at the moon, which glimmered faintly through the fog. Perhaps it would soon begin to lift.